I want to add my welcome to Eric Kasischke, who heads up the implementation of NASA's Arctic Boreal Vulnerability Experiment, or ABoVE. In that role, he develops the partnerships with other organizations interested in collaborating in Alaska and Canada on the responses of terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems and societal responses to environmental change in the above study domain, which we'll hear a bit more about in a moment. IARPC has been tracking the above experiment since Diane Wickland brought it to our attention, just as we were developing our own IARPC plans under the kind of revised IARPC efforts. So I'm very pleased to hear about ABoVE. Well, that ABoVE is now in its implementation phase. Prior to this assignment, Dr. Kasischke worked at the University of Maryland, focused on the impacts of fire on boreal forests and peatlands. So please, Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Simon. NASA's Terrestrial Ecology Program is a basic research program within the Earth Sciences Division of NASA. It is part of a larger carbon cycle and ecosystems focus area that has other research focuses as well. Our programs provide extramural funding to PIs at universities, NASA research centers, other federal agencies, private companies, NGOs, et cetera. So we have a fairly broadly based research activity that we sponsor. And the Terrestrial Ecology Program conducts field campaigns where we do concentrated funding focused on specific regions or topic areas. And so ABoVE is the fourth in line after a series of field campaigns listed here that began in the late 1980s. ABoVE is going to be focused on environmental change in Arctic and boreal regions of Western North America and the implications of these change for both ecological systems and society. So we have an overarching science question that you can read here that's focused on vulnerability and resilience of ecosystems and society to change. And then our overarching science objective focuses on understanding the underlying processes and their interactions that are controlling these changes. As we all know from in this group that there are unique ongoing changes to Arctic and boreal systems that are of particular interest in this region, including changes to permafrost conditions and thermokarst, variations in disturbance regimes and how ecosystems are responding to those regimes, as well as satellite observations of vegetation, greenness, and browning that have occurred over the past 40 years, are some of the areas that represent key environmental changes. ABoVE is also very interested in understanding how these changes are going to affect the ecosystem services that people depend upon in this region. So here we have a couple of examples of changes to wildlife habitat is certainly a key research interest, as well as changes or impacts on infrastructure. At global scales, one of the key areas for research for ABoVE is understanding how changes in this region feed back to the climate. In particular, basically the feedbacks from soil carbon pools that are in permafrost and peatlands. We decided from the very beginning of the design for ABoVE that we would look at the research area as an integrated social ecological system, so that we consider research from the beginning on the impacts of changes to ecosystems on ecosystem services and their societal impacts. So this looks at it from a standpoint as a continuous system, not a linear system. We have 6 major thematic areas for focusing our research that include disturbance, permafrost, hydrology, flora, fauna, society, and carbon biogeochemistry. And based on those 6 themes, we have a science question associated with each one. I just should let people know I'm going through these slides rather quickly, but you can get copies of them at the very end of this presentation. I have a link to a website that provides linkages to the concise experiment plan for ABoVE, where you can read about the experiment plan in detail that goes over each of these questions and objectives. We have 2 sets of objectives, one focused on ecosystem dynamics and another focused on societal impacts. The ecosystem dynamics objectives are designed to be able to look at questions in an integrated fashion in terms of the processes that are driving change. And then our ecosystem services objectives are looking at focusing on the impacts of those changes to ecosystems on society. So one of the things we've done in our ecosystem services objectives, because there are a variety of impacts that are occurring on society and we can't address them all, we've set a priority of the top 6 areas that we want to focus on with our research. We've designed an experiment plan that looks at a broad region that has both a core region, which is in red, outlined in red here, and then a